The iPhone has a big problem. It's this, and definitely this. As much as Apple doesn't want to admit it, millions and millions of iPhone users, including fanatic Apple fans, are reliant on Google's apps and services every single day. From search to mail to contacts to calendars to YouTube, Google has a lot of control over iPhone users whether they know it or not. But what would happen if Google's apps and services were kicked off of the iPhone for good? I hate to say it, but it's true. The answer will surprise you. Seriously. And a big thanks to Roborock for sponsoring this video. The relationship between Apple and Google is one of the most fascinating examples of frenemies I've ever seen, not just in the tech space, but like in the entire business world. Because on one hand, these two are supposed to be bitter rivals. There's this horrible feud between iOS versus Android, iPhone versus Pixel. Google and Apple are supposed to not get along. But on the other hand, behind the scenes, the two work closely together on a lot of different projects, many of which make both companies a whole lot of money. In fact, let's rewind the clock a bit back to 2007. Most of you guys probably remember this moment.
Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device.
But I think many of you don't remember this.
Now, you can't really think about the internet, of course, without thinking about Google. We've been working very closely with them to make this all happen. We're thrilled with the results, and it's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Eric Schmidt, Google's CEO.
Yeah, that is the then Google CEO literally running on stage to sing the praises of Apple and Steve Jobs and talk about this miraculous new thing called the iPhone, and how the two companies had this great relationship and even joked about merging Apple and Google.
And I thought, if we just sort of merge the companies, we could call them Apple Goo.
Back in those days, Apple and Google had a very close working relationship. Google was the default search engine on the Mac. You had, of course, Google being the search engine of choice on Safari on the iPhone as well, and the Apple Maps app was really reliant and kind of powered by Google's mapping technology. Heck, there was even a built-in YouTube app that was a stock app on the iPhone that shipped with the iPhone out of the box for a number of years. Obviously, things are not the same as they were back in 2007. It was simpler times back then. And as much as I wish as I could go into this complicated, complex, but fascinating relationship between Apple and Google, I don't want to go full tech historian in this one. I just thought I'd kind of save that for another video. So in this one, let me just kind of keep it short, sweet, to the point, and sort of give you the highlights. The original iPhone launches with a bunch of fanfare, but then shortly after, Google releases Android, basically a software competitor that goes head to head with what Apple is doing with the iPhone. Then Google's CEO resigns from Apple's board because obviously it was a conflict of interest because both companies were sort of competing in the same space. Over the years, Android becomes increasingly more popular and is widely adopted by a lot of different phone manufacturers. Apple works internally to sort of separate itself from Google and sort of build up its own services to not have to sort of use a lot of Google's infrastructure, and you kind of get the rest. As the years go on, the two have really become bitter enemies and don't work together much at all anymore because they are competing squarely kind of face to face on the iOS side and the Android side. And I do have to give Apple credit where credit is due. They certainly were off to a not so smooth start with Apple Maps and other services, initiatives, and stuff like that. But over the years, they have gotten a lot better. You have Apple Maps, which is now a really good alternative to Google Maps in a lot of ways. You have iCloud now, which is leaps and bounds better than the .Mac and Mobile Me days. iCloud is a much better service and is really good at contact syncing and calendar syncing, seamless backups of devices. You also have sort of the iWork suite, which kind of competes with Google Docs and Sheets and Slides and stuff like that. And Apple is doing more and more, as much as they can, to really compete and offer alternatives to Google's apps and services. But even with that being said, many people still use Google's apps on their iPhone every single day. And Apple, oh, they hate it. One of the reasons Apple hates it so much is because it breaks the seamless Apple ecosystem. It puts holes in the walls of Apple's walled garden, and it kind of takes a lot of the control out of Apple's hands and puts it into Google's. Yes, Apple can control a lot of the ways that the apps behave and the ways they look, but they can only, do so much of that. There are limits, and in a lot of ways, Google has much more control over how and when these apps work and how they get updated, the way they look, the way they function with other Apple services. And even if Apple wanted to tomorrow implement some new groundbreaking revolutionary feature and offer it for free, if Google didn't support it, then a lot of people wouldn't use it. For example, spatial audio is this awesome new technology. It works on AirPods and newer Apple devices like iPhones and iPads. It would be awesome to see Google follow the trend of other streaming services and adopt spatial audio, but they won't on YouTube. YouTube does not support spatial audio, so millions and millions of people will never experience just how cool that Apple technology is, not because of Apple, but really because of Google. And the same goes for Google's other apps and services that people use every single day: Mail, Calendar, Contacts, Photos, Google's audio streaming services, and YouTube TV and all that stuff. There is a lot that Apple would love for people to not use and use their own alternatives, but if there's one that's more important than any other, it has gotta be Google Search. And a little fun fact for the day, in case you didn't know, Google Search being sort of the default on the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac is not by coincidence. It just didn't happen overnight. In fact, it was the result of a very complicated and I'm sure a very rigorous negotiation between Apple versus Google. And the stats are out for how much Google is paying for the privilege to be the default search engine on Apple devices, and the amount is just staggering. According to the Wall Street Journal, which got some figures from a recent Department of Justice lawsuit, Google pays Apple an estimated $8 to $12 billion per year to be the default search engine on Apple devices. That's a crazy, staggering figure, but once you put it into some context, it gets even crazier. That deal between the two companies accounts for 1/3 of Alphabet's profits per year. Alphabet, of course, is Google's parent company, and that also in turn is about 15 to 20% of Apple's yearly profits as well. Of course, the big question here, especially the one most relevant in 2021, is what would happen if Google Search was no longer the default on Apple devices? What if Apple kicked Google to the curb, they pushed that money aside, and did their own thing? They built their own search engine from the bottom up, whether that was completely from scratch or from acquiring a competitor like DuckDuckGo. What if Apple had their own search engine that was the new default on all Apple devices? I know that this sounds crazy and totally out of left field, but the more and more you think about it, the more it actually makes sense, especially right now when you kind of look at Apple's core values and what they really put emphasis on when it comes to their devices and services. Of course, the biggest one, if you watch any Apple event, is privacy. Apple is very conscious of the safety and security of its users, and they want to make sure everything done on iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches, Macs, everything in the Apple ecosystem is done safely, securely, and transparently. Let's take a break from this Apple versus Google saga so I can tell you about one of my new all-time favorite gadgets. It is the latest and greatest from this video's sponsor, Roborock. You guys might remember that a few weeks ago, I showed off this, the Roborock S7. It vacuums, it mops, it's got LiDAR technology built in to scan its surroundings, plus a whole lot more. It's amazing and I use it every single day, but now there's a new Roborock accessory to pair with it that makes the whole cleaning process even easier, and that is the new Auto Empty Dock. And this whole setup works as seamlessly as you'd expect. As soon as my Roborock S7 vacuum is done vacuuming, it automatically goes back to its dock to charge, and once it's docked, the contents of the dustbin are automatically sucked up into a 3-liter bag, and it's done, it's ready to go, and it's ready to start vacuuming again. The nice thing is that this lets me go about 8 weeks without having to empty it, and also there is automatic dust bin protection, so it's only going to empty the dustbin if it detects that it's there, so everything is super safe and secure. And when it is time to empty, the whole process is super simple. The bag itself actually self-seals, so there's no sort of dust leakage when you remove it, and also the bag itself has been treated with an antibacterial agent to prevent any bacterial growth. I also really appreciate the level of smarts and control built into the Roborock app as well. There are intelligent dust collection algorithms that make sure the emptying process happens at the most undisruptive time as possible. So it looks at how long you've cleaned, when the last time you emptied was, what time of day it was, to make sure that this process all happens seamlessly and smoothly and also doesn't disturb you at all. You also have options in the app to adjust the empty mode for how often the dock auto empties, and there's also this empty dustbin button that you always have access to if you just want to do it manually. And in addition to all of this, there's also a series of filters built in, including a HEPA layer that helps to filter out the air in your home to keep it as fresh as possible. This thing is seriously awesome. Pairing a Roborock vacuum with this auto empty dock is like a dynamic duo. It's a great combination, a match made in heaven. These are two wonderful things that put together make the cleaning process so simple, so easy, so wonderful. I love it, and I know you guys are gonna love it as well. So if you wanna learn more about Roborock and their auto empty dock, hit that link right down below to learn more and check out Roborock's entire lineup of all their cool vacuums and accessories that is gonna make the cleaning process in your home so much simpler. I love it, I know you guys will too. Hit that link down below to learn more and check out Roborock's offerings today. And Apple and Google don't see eye to eye when it comes to privacy, because obviously Google makes a lot of money from ads and the data they collect from its users, and Apple does not, and they're trying to actively stop that, really kind of going after Facebook, Google, and other companies for this type of spying and information collection that they are doing. So if Apple had their own search engine that, let's say, was safe, secure, anonymous, private, that didn't track you around the web, they didn't collect your IP address and your geolocation and different identifiers and stuff like that, if it was solely focused on privacy and security, it would make sense for Apple to make that move. They'd sort of be the knight in shining armor, they'd be the crusade to come in, to clear house, and to give users this safe haven of this privacy-first search engine that would be pretty good, maybe not up to snuff with Google, but good enough, and that would totally focus on you, your safety, and your anonymity as you browsed around online. Remember that Google is not paying Apple billions and billions of dollars a year out of the kindness and goodness of their heart. They're doing it because they want access to all of the billion-plus devices in the Apple ecosystem. They want to be that default search engine, and I'm sure they make their money back tenfold from the privilege of being that default search box that people get on their phones. But if that was to change, and even if Google was to lose a fraction of the estimated 1.5 billion devices in the Apple ecosystem, that would certainly hurt them. Even if it was 200 million, 300 million, 400 million, even if it was less than half, 30, 35%, that would still be a big win for Apple, but put a huge dent in Alphabet's profits because they're losing a whole lot of money on those iOS users they used to seemingly have easily before that they now no longer have as much access to. We did hear a little bit more of rumblings in the fall that there was kind of renewed effort internally for Apple to build this competitor to Google, and we don't know what their plan is, if they're going to do it, if they won't. But again, in sort of the context of 2021 and looking at Apple's values and their principles and what they really put a lot of stock into, privacy is one of, if not the biggest things that Apple is focusing on these days, and having a safe and secure Apple-made search engine sure does make a whole lot of sense. But if Apple was to sort of make this switch, would you give it a try? Would you not give it a try? Do you think Apple has any business competing in the search engine business at all? Or do you think they need to take a step back, continue to do more on the outside to limit Google's functionality and limit some of the bad things that other companies can do, but still give users Google as the default? I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? Should Apple enter the search engine game or not? Let us know in the comments down below. I'm curious what you guys have to say about this and if you'd use it or not. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle, and I will see you guys in the next one.